Today I have a very special guest, Mr. Alonzo Bodden.
Yes. What is up, Seth?
Welcome, welcome, man.
How you doing?
I'm spectacular, and
Good.
I'm again super impressed. This man rode here today on a motorcycle in rain in Los Angeles, which is rare enough as it is. But you trekked through the rain to get here.
Yeah. I mean, I love riding, and I've ridden in the rain enough that on occasion it's fun. It's fun when you don't have to do it, right?
Right.
When you want to do it, but you don't have to do it. When, 20 years ago, when I was riding and you had to ride, you get caught out in the rain with the wrong gear on and you get soaked and you're cold. That's miserable. But when you got the right gear on and stuff, it's fun.
You have the luxury of option.
Exactly.
And that's where that comes in handy, where you're like,
exactly.
I don't have to do this, but today it will be fun. Now, you've been a host on a couple different things, but you're a comedian, and you've been on TV for multiple different occasions. You have your own podcast, radio, you name it.
Right.
You've been all over it.
Comedian is the main thing by far. If people ask me what I do or even what I am, that's the answer. I'm a comic. Everything stems from that. The hosting gigs, that is something that I didn't even know I was good at or liked until I was asked to do it. And then I found like, oh, yeah, I can do this. And it's fun. It's because you never know what to expect as a host. So it's all about staying in the moment. Radio, Wait, Don't Tell Me. It's a huge NPR show. They invited me on as a panelist, and it just went great. So I do that every month. And my podcast is me periodically ranting and raving about stuff in the news that I just don't like.
I was listening to it earlier, and that's I always try to do research on someone.
Yeah.
So I was listening to the stuff that you're talking about, and it's pretty. You're spot on with a lot of stuff, and the interesting part of just a podcast and saying, hey, this is my opinion, and being able to just put it out there.
Yeah, it's
amazing.
people respond. I think in some ways it's the voice of common sense. And, it stems back. It's called Who's Paying Attention? And that was the name of my first Showtime special. And what it comes from is the media, is the news. I think the news media has dropped the ball to the point. That's why everything else is a mess. That's why we have, a Donald Trump or you name it, because the news. Listen, I don't know how old you are, Seth. You're not as old as me, but there was a time when the news, those guys stayed on top of things. I mean, you look at Watergate. That's a perfect example. That was the news. The news brought down a corrupt president. Now they just they love the clicks. They love the coverage, So and there's a lot of common sense things that people deal with, and Lewis Black, who's a great comic and a friend of mine, he said, they asked him about, because he does these news correspondent pieces and stuff, and they're like, why are you? He says, well, comics don't want to do it, but nobody else is doing it. Like, it became our job to tell the truth, so here we are.
It's also interesting with the technology difference from when now you have social media and you have platforms of different things where you can put out mass information that may not be really correct.
We have different versions of the truth, right? Which is why it's even more important, or it would be even better if the news did give the truth. Because if you trust Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, or any other social media for, the last election showed how easy it is to manipulate Facebook, right? And this belief that, oh, he has 1 million followers, she has 2 million followers, so she must know what she's talking about. Well, no. You know who knows what they're talking about? A scientist. They went to college. They studied. We've lost track of that's who knows what they're talking about. Nobody's listening to that. That's not the fun opinion. Another thing, was talking about this earlier today. The news, when they have reporters interviewing other reporters. That's CNN's thing. CNN will take a story, then they have a panel of 4 reporters. Well, who cares? Who cares what the hell they think? How about getting somebody involved in the actual story to talk about it? That, and again, that's all gone. So the comics, it's what we do, right? I mean, Jon Stewart, for a whole generation, they said, yeah, we get our news from Jon Stewart. We trust him more than anyone on TV, which is great, but also not the way it's supposed to work.
Right. Well, you want let the professionals do their job. Let the pros do their job. If you studied in something, would you let a mechanic give you surgery?
Exactly. Well, if he had enough followers, I would. Yeah. If he had a few
must be
surgical followers, it's like, well, he's obviously seen a YouTube video, so he could.
Well, and
it's funny you mention that, because a friend of mine who's a doctor, they deal with this all the time now, right? Because everybody goes online and diagnoses themselves, and then they go in the doctor's office. Yeah, and he told me, and then they come in and they tell him what's wrong and what should do. And
I think I have tuberculosis.
Right, and he said, when people say, I saw it on the internet, he said, I have the internet also. I also have a medical degree and 20 years experience, so I'm going to trust my opinion. But yeah, people do that all the time. You see a commercial. Anytime you see a medical commercial, you have those symptoms. Okay, if you go to WebMD, you're dying. It's just a matter of, is it going to be in a week or a month? But you no doubt have your tuberculosis has cancer. That's how bad it is right now. And you should have gotten online yesterday, because you only have 7 minutes to live.
It's crazy. It is interesting on how the internet can be so powerful, but then can also be.
Well, there's no filter. So you're supposed to be the filter, but people aren't, right? So if you get all your news from Alex Jones, you're probably wrong.
And it's interesting to think on where are you getting this source from? Where's your information coming from? But it's also fascinating to see on the other side that people with a following, or that are winning the popularity contest of life, have such an influence on people. That's crazy.
Well, from the very start, I've always said Facebook is high school. Facebook is high school. The most popular people have people follow them. They dress like them, they think like them, they talk like them, right? You have the super sexy girls who people just look at, and they're the unattainable, but they're, the hot ones to look at, right? Then you have the thinkers, the nerdy thinkers arguing over minutia, over points. You have the jocks, who are all the sports fans, who obviously know more than any head coach would ever. But if you look at Facebook is high school. I mean, the unfortunate part of it is the bullying when it leads to a suicide, right? When you bully kids who don't have any outside influence, right? So you have these 11, 12, 13-year-olds. They might live in a small town, or they might be the one who's different for whatever reason, and they don't have a voice telling them, like, no, you're going to be all right, you're going to grow up, you're cool, this or that, and they believe the bullying and they give up on life, right? That's social media at its worst. So you need, if you're young, there has to be somebody reminding you this ain't real. This is not real life.
Right.
And it's unfortunate, but for many people it is real life.
Yeah, especially if you don't have anyone, then all of a sudden the only people you have are these people online.
Yeah, it's it's like you said, it's great and bad, right? So the great thing about the internet is now you could be a teenager and have friends from around the world. You can live in Iowa and you have friends in New York and California and Amsterdam and Berlin and Egypt, and you're just, what an amazing view you get.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, you can also get caught up in some totally negative atmosphere, some white supremacist bullshit, or there's a lot of hate groups now, unfortunately. Or you can get, like you were saying, where you get news. I hate the term fake news, but that's what you get, because even the algorithms online tend to feed you what you want to hear. So if you keep clicking on, let's say, liberal stories, you're going to get fed liberal stories,
right?
And so on. So that's the bad part. But the good thing is, you can use it as a tool. You can use a number of different influences. You can read different sides of the same story.
That's the interesting part, is that it's not that there isn't truth out there. It's just now you have to look at more things to find it.
Yeah, and you have to look at the source. Look at the source. See
if it came from The Onion.
Right. They're probably just kidding. Although, you know how hard it is to write The Onion with Trump as president? Because you have to come up with something that he wouldn't say. And there's, like, you can have an Onion story and you'll be like, yeah, I believe he would say that. Hey, satire in this time, satire's a tough gig.
It
tough
is.
gig.
Well, one of the things that is interesting now too is that people, if you voted for this, then I don't want to be your friend.
Yes.
I don't. For me, religion, race, politics. You believe what you believe. I still can be your friend. But what do you think about that?
Well, there are extremes in anything. There are extremes. So, yeah, I can be your friend. You can be Republican, and I can be your friend. Mm-hmm. I'm not a religious person, but if you have religious beliefs, that's okay. But when you're an extremist, like I have a friend, I grew up with this guy, and suddenly he went totally right-wing, religious, this or that. And he, we would talk, and he would talk like gay marriage, about how horrible. And it's like, well, why does it affect you? Like, there are people, well, it's a sin, and they're training the children. Like gay, this whole idea that gays are indoctrinating children is just wrong, But so we got to a point where we couldn't talk too much. We could talk about some things, but it was just like, listen, man, I'm not going to battle your views. Like, particularly with religion is one, because any religious argument at some point, they're like, well, Jesus said, and I can't dispute that with you because you believe that, mm-hmm. but there's no scientific proof, but so you get that. And then sometimes people say they find out that somebody they've known has these extreme racist views or something like that, and they're like, well, now I can't hang out with you because I know you think that, you think
like this
blank. So sometimes you find out things that, it does ruin a friendship, but you find out who people really are. But for the most part, listen, I've been to Israel, and there are Palestinians and Israelis who are friends. Right, there are Arabs living in Israel, so we can probably work our shit out.
There's hope. There's hope. Now, with that, one of the things that I think is a problem is that people don't really listen, and a lot of it is I get defensive because you question my values, you question my beliefs, and then you question that. So then, of course, I gotta. Well, no, this is my way is right. Instead of just saying, well, let me hear what you have to say. Yeah.
I mean, the defensiveness, the attacks, that is human nature, right? To defend your position.
Right.
It's kind of like sports talk, where people go on for hours. Is LeBron better than Kobe? LeBron and Kobe are all right. They're cool. They're like, yeah, you did your thing, I do mine. They probably have some competitiveness on some level,
Sure.
Tom Brady and Drew Brees or something like that, right? But it's funny listening to how much people argue it. But now that has moved over into real life, and the part of it, the bullying, the ugly side of it, right? It's one thing. I'm a comic. Just talking about this the other day. The green room, the stuff we say to each other, the stuff we joke about, if people heard it, be horrified. It's just wrong. We laugh about shit that is just wrong because we're comics. Athletes have a locker room where they say shit to each other, do stuff to each other that is just you couldn't do in ordinary society, you know. And this is a thing, right? This is so now we live in an era of Donald Trump, and I joke about it. I say, you know, you can't. Anytime 3 or more people are in a room, you're going to start talking about Donald Trump. You don't want to; it just comes in. But now you're looking at this thing. One of the things that he and it makes his wife Melania look so hypocritical and full of shit. The bullying, the calling people names. So you have a debate. You have right now we have the debate about the wall, right? But now it's not, you know, Nancy Pelosi. It's lying Nancy Pelosi. It's whining Schumer. You know, it like he's literally like a little kid calling people names. So when you can't tell a kid don't call people names because like, well, the president does it. You know, it's so as a society, we've lowered the bar, the bar of civility. There's always been an element to that, and that's okay. But now you deal with it in places it shouldn't be. You know, that's where we've gone off the rails. That's where we're wrong. You deal with this stuff, name calling, arguing, that not listening. Let me tell you something, Seth. People don't listen. People wait for their turn to talk. As a comic, we get so much material out of just listening to what you said and saying it back to you. And then you're laughing and you're like, yeah, you just said that. Listen to how stupid that sounds. Right? So that is, listening is part of our job that people don't think. People are like, oh man, you comics talk all the time. Yeah, but we listen. That's how we get it, you know. People don't listen. People in conversation wait for their turn to talk.
I think that's very true. And what I hear from you is that you bring up bullying a couple different times throughout this. Is there personal experience or what you're very passionate about? I can tell.
No, it's just in this conversation because we're talking about social media, and bullying is an element of social media. And listen, I'm not sensitive to it. In other words, as a comic, right, we get a lot of shit for making fun of stuff.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't make fun of. Yeah, we should. Yeah, we should. We make fun of everything. Yeah, we make fun of kids. We make fun of animals. We make fun of different races.
People laugh.
We make fun of, you know, yeah, it's what we do because there's a sense of humor to it. There's humor to it. But the bullying I'm talking about is the type that doesn't have humor. The one thing where bullying bothers me is I'm a big guy. I'm physically big.
Yeah.
And I hate a bully. And if I see someone bullying somebody, especially if it's a friend of mine, something in me snaps. And it's like, oh, you want to go? Let me show you what it's like to be scared. You know, I hate that. But other than that, I mean, again, I'm talking about it in the context of it can be the worst part of social media, but this sensitivity and this artificial outrage, right? Like the Trump Republicans, when the Congresswoman said, we're going to impeach that motherfucker. I can't believe, oh my God. She said, motherfucker, I'm so offended that I'm going to go home and grab my wife by the pussy. Excuse me? You know what I mean? It's like, get the fuck out of here. You're
Makes
offended.
Sense. Yeah.
No, you're not allowed to be offended because you were fine with this, and this.
But now this isn't okay.
Now suddenly this is no good. You know, and when people, it's such a thing now. It's annoying to me. This annoys me when people interview us about comics, us being comics on my level, about comics who are much richer and more famous than me. You know? Listen, I need Louis C.K. problems. Okay, Louis made $46 million last year. I could use some Louis problems. Seth, if there's anything I've said offensive on this podcast, please just cut out that clip and send it to TMZ.
I will. I'll get you those
fuck
problems.
the children. Just put that in. See right there. Just fuck the children. Give me that. Can I be the fuck the children guy and make a few dollars?
Yeah. We'll get you some publicity. No problem, man. No problem at all.
Because that's what they do, right? They take those 3 words out of the entire thing we were talking about. See, and that makes it. You could take one punchline out of 90% of comics act, and make them a horrible person.
Well, because you're missing 90% of the other stuff.
Yeah.
Well, you're from Bronx, right?
No, Queens.
Queens. You're from Queens. And with that, I'm from the East Coast too, and part of the locker room stuff that you're talking about, I think the East Coast, as growing up, I don't think any of my friends ever said anything nice to me, and that's how I knew they were my friends.
Yeah.
And that correlates over to kind of having that thick skin. And as a comedian, you were talking about, you really need that. Now, what do you think about that going into bullying and things like that, of where I don't get offended by pretty much anything. I'm pretty, you make fun of me. Fine,
well, again, it's where it comes from, right? So one of the things that you said is very key. Friends. Friends can say things. You can joke with friends that other people, you can't joke about it, right?
Right.
Like I have a buddy, just a really good looking guy. Like he could have been a model. He just has that, look, yeah. And we joke with him about it. We mess with him about it, about being pretty and this, that, the other, right? And he'll laugh. Now, if he doesn't know you and you do it, it bothers him, because now you're dismissing everything about him and making it a pretty face, and I get that,
Again, quality problem.
Race, yeah, that is. Race, I work with comics, especially there was a period early in my career, man. I was doing a lot of stuff in East LA. I was working with Mexican comics all the time. And we would go back and forth, Mexican this, black that, and we would just rip on each other. And the crowd loved it because they knew we were friends.
Right.
They knew there was no anger in that. We had a great time. When Michael Richards called a guy in the crowd a nigger, the crowd stopped, because it was like, you meant that shit.
We're not
that
friends.
wasn't a joke.
Yeah.
You meant that, crowds pick up on what you mean. You can joke, men joke about women, races, whatever. People get it. Brad Williams, comic, I don't know what he is this week. I don't know if he's a dwarf or a midget or a little guy. Fuck, I can't keep up. Little fucker's funny. That me and him will have that joke. Me and Brad joke because we are the two extremes of size. Right.
You're a big guy.
But that's something we're friends. But it'd be different if I actually had some kind of agenda or hatred toward a little person and just
no
got on them every day. Every day I'm posting something, making fun, blah, blah, blah. That's different. Same thing with any, physical attributes are generally the worst thing to do, because a person can't do anything about that.
Can't change that.
They can't do anything about that. So they are who they are. So friends joke about it, but even then you can go too far, But that's the key word in that, friends. And that's why this online bullying thing where everybody in class is going to pick on so and so because of her hair or because of her or because of his, or that's where these kids, because they're kids, they're in their formative years, and it's not the same as what you're talking about, where kids are joking and bullshitting with each other and joking, making fun of something, to when you're getting vicious and getting personal.
Right. It's a lot different. Now, to kind of go more into you. Now I know your beliefs. Now I know your thoughts. Now I want to know. You came out here to pursue aerospace technology, right? Mm-hmm. So then, which, let alone, you're a smart guy behind it, which is, incredible.
Well, thank you.
You're a smart guy, and
thank you.
You're a goofy guy and all the other stuff, but it's not like you're just. You're a fucking engineer, which is great, because when you're talking about scientist or things like that, that STEM nature, it's not like you're just irrational, like, I don't know, just think, you actually come from hard logic.
So it's great you use the word logic, because I love logic and I love scientific things, and I wish things did work like that. Unfortunately, they don't. But where the aerospace background comes into entertainment is, I worked in the real world, right? I went to Lockheed. I worked at the plant, I was there 7 to 3:30 building airplanes. I was a member of the union. I've been through layoffs and all of that. So when people come up with that, oh well, you're Hollywood, you don't know anything about life. Yeah, I do. You know, it's like the Chevy commercial, right? These are real people, not actors. Like actors are real people. You know, SAG is a real union. You know, just so people's dismissal of the entertainment. There is definitely a fake part of the entertainment business. There's a part that we are really spoiled in a lot of ways, you know. Just like the other extreme of the coin to me is Sean Penn, you know, talking about how hard he works all the time. It's like, Sean, you know who works hard? The guy who really does what you're pretending to do. That son of a bitch works hard. He's tired every day. He doesn't have a trailer or an assistant, you know.
But on that note, though, it is easy to get accustomed to things.
Well, people get accustomed. Everyone has their own normal, and acting is a difficult job, and it is a talent, right? To create this character, to create this emotion on cue, to do it over and over. You know, take one, take two, take three. Yeah, absolutely. And people don't understand that because they just see the finished product, and they think you just acted. They think it was a play, that you just did it from beginning to end in one take, and then we're shot done. It, and the movie's done. Here's your $20 million. You know,
that's not true.
Unfortunately, but yeah, it gets back to what you were talking about earlier about, you know, understanding other people. So having worked in two different worlds, I guess, gives me a greater understanding.
And then it really builds that perspective because you've seen everything. You've seen the working every day and working early in the morning and being in that realm to then being on, now you're on stage.
Yeah, and being on stage. And then even in that, you know, there's different levels. Like there's little comedy club, there's big comedy club, there's theater, there's TV, you know, and it all, each one of those is different.
What's your favorite?
A comedy club, about 250, 300 people.
That's a good room for you.
That's the greatest. It's the most creative, and you connect. My favorite thing in the job is the creativity. But I've had fun with 10 people because you just don't give a shit and you're just going to think out loud and talk, and it's going to be. I
watched one of the ones when you were in the beach house.
Yeah.
You were very just like, hey.
That kind of stuff is super fun for me. It's funny you mentioned social media because people like that clip. If I were better at editing and putting up my own clips, I'd have a lot more on YouTube.
It's true.
I got to find someone who's, it's one of those things. I need somebody, and everyone's like, yeah, I can do that. I know somebody, but nobody follows through. So, you know, anyone watching this who is a good YouTube editor, please contact me.
You got one right there, man. He smiles big. But so I've watched your stand up and stuff, and you know, one of the things that I would say is that you have an overall good nature about it. It's not too malicious, it's not too dirty. It has a very good balance where it's not I'm trying to find the word to describe it. It's not too explicit.
I wish I were more extreme. I wish I had been more extreme.
Why is that?
It gets me more attention. But it's not like there's a again, a common sense to my voice on stage. The greatest compliment I ever got years ago, an article in Playboy, they called me one of the spawn of Carlin because of my social observations. And I love that, and I would love to be that. But especially now, but no, not even especially now, always, the extreme voices get more coverage. So, and it's not about cursing for the sake of cursing. That's not what I'm talking about. But certain people have had opinions that are not popular at all, but they get a lot of coverage because of that opinion. You know, I don't know, man. I have a good career. You know, I always say it's been a great run, but it'd be nice to have a few $1 million in the bank. You know, it's just the way it is.
But there's a part of you
I'm not complaining. Believe me, I'm not complaining. I mean, you know, I got a house that I paid for with jokes. I can't say that life has been unfair to me, right? I remember, this was 15 years ago, Roseanne would be on stage just angry, bitching about how Hollywood and producers, and it's really, because you got $300 million. So granted, and it's true. Hollywood is a mean machine. Hollywood is a machine, and Hollywood will use you up. And when we're done with you, we will toss you away. That's how Hollywood works. But you're leaving with pretty good stack of cash and prizes. So maybe you got to just maybe not bitch to somebody who's working every day about how bad Hollywood treated you when you got $300 million.
Perspective.
Keep the perspective gives you the sense of humor about it. That's what you have to remember.
Right. But one of the things that it sounds like you're saying though is that you have that level of integrity, even though you're not super radical. Well, you're staying pretty authentic.
Yeah, listen. It's my opinion on stage, and there's some things that I do rant about, but yeah, I'm authentic to me and to what I believe. And it's about being real, unless you're doing a character, I'm not into the fake outrage, and that's, I don't think audiences don't buy fake,
right?
But they do, if you can sell that if you're willing to do it. If it's all about just to be famous, to make a name, you can do it. Real comics don't buy it. I love that I get the respect of comics.
Yeah, everyone that I've talked to loves you.
I love the respect of comics because we know, and there's some of us who are rich and famous that it's like, yeah, but it's all So
more money, more problems.
Well, it's not that. It's being real to. I mean, listen, Dave Chappelle deservedly is one of the richest comics in the world, but Dave is. Nobody's more real than Dave. Nobody's more real than him. And he has something in the way he thinks, man. He hits on things that, that's why he's Dave Chappelle. That's why he is who he is. And then other people are famous for other reasons, but the respect of great comics is something that I can safely say I take pride in.
I think it's important because they respect your craft.
Yeah,
that's what you do. Now,
like Chris, we talk about Chris D'Elia, right? A mutual friend. He and I couldn't be more different on stage. But I love what he does. He loves what I do. We're friends. You know what I mean? And it's funny because we kind of became buddies, bumping into each other at 2 a.m. at Ralph's. After doing your late night spots at the factory or the Comedy Store, each other, we would just bump into each other at this Ralph's, but it's cool to be, I love people who do something different than what I do.
Yeah, well, it gives you a better perspective on other things out there, and you sound like someone who could probably listen to. Yeah,
you enjoy it. Just watching somebody do something different, because they're funny, but their mind works in a completely different way.
Right.
They're talking about different topics, different life experience, blah blah blah. But to the crowd, they're funny and you're funny. I'm
works.
Good with that.
Where does the inspiration come from for a lot of your jokes? Is it personal experiences?
What strikes me as funny is what I talk about. I used to do a lot more personal stuff prior to Last Comic Standing. Last Comic Standing was the biggest thing I've done on TV and what I call my introduction to America. Prior to that, I did a lot more personal, my life stories, dating and whatever else, working, blah, blah, blah. And then I got more into doing, because I had to do that show every week and I had to keep coming up with new material, I was having so much fun doing topical stuff. And what I find is I find the world funnier than me. So I'd rather talk about the world because that's what strikes me as funny. I'll talk about myself sometimes, and I'm trying to work on that now. I'm trying to do some more of that just because it's a new challenge creatively. But yeah, when something strikes me as funny, ridiculous, stupid, that's what I talk about.
There's a lot of things out there.
It is an unending supply.
It's crazy with some of the stuff that you see going on.
Well, you couldn't, if somebody was making this point, they said that, 10, 15 years ago, if you told somebody, well, the president of the United States is going to be investigated by the FBI, a special investigator from Congress, be in collusion or, accused of collusion with the Russians, and have fucked porn stars, and like people would have been like, no, Like, don't be ridiculous, right?
Right.
I'm serious. I mean,
Right.
there's any one of these things you'd be like, no. It's like, yeah, that's our reality now. Build a wall.
But even politics aside, look at the fact that you can say 50 years ago and then look at someone and be like, one day that computer is going to be in your pocket.
Well, my brother is a lifelong techie. My brother started studying computers in the 70s, late 70s. So he said, yeah, your phone was a room.
Right.
You know, and yeah, if and that's where they talk about the Jetsons and Star Trek and stuff, because yeah, we're living that. You know, we're living that. You can talk into your watch, and you have the internet. You have all the information.
Little headphones. You can
have all the information in the world in your hand, and we're still remarkably stupid. but other things socially, gays are allowed to get married. You know, we didn't even have gays in the 70s. And then nobody, I joke about it. Like, nobody would have, nobody even talked about it.
No.
Obviously they existed.
Yeah, but.
Again, when you protest, yes, you existed. I know we had gays in the 70s. It's a joke. Right?
Very nice.
You got to do the discliner whenever you say
Make sure.
But yeah, we've gone.
I'm just going to cut the clip right before that.
Yeah.
Though.
And I tell people, people who are anti-gay marriage, it's like, well, listen, Louisiana or Alabama, one of them, they legalized interracial marriage in 2000. Yeah, I think it's Alabama. They legalized it. So this is the thinking you're dealing with when you hit them with gay marriage. This is why their heads exploded.
Yeah.
The United States is two countries. The coasts are one country, and the middle is another. But overall, we move forward. So yeah, when you talk about, there's so many things that we could talk about that people never would have imagined
that are around now.
That are normal.
Look, Elon Musk is trying to make Mars a reality.
Yeah. Yeah, Elon needs to slow down a bit.
You think he's too much?
No, it's just, this forward-thinking revolutionary thing. It's like, okay, yeah, but how much of this is realistic? You know what I mean? Like maybe you should work on that Tesla assembly line before we go to Mars. Perhaps people waiting for a Model 3 would say, well, before we go to Mars, I'd like the car I paid for. See, and that's what I talk about. That's common sense shit. Like, yeah.
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true.
Elon, slow down on... We're not zooming through tunnels underground. I just want my Model 3.
So that's all they want. Now, not to divert, but one of the things that I've noticed with your stand-up is that most of the time you're in a suit. You're dressed up.
No, that's a TV thing.
That was a TV thing.
That's a TV thing.
Because one of the things I wanted to ask you about was about style, personal style.
Oh, I love clothes. I love your clothes. I'm too big to wear your clothes, but no, seriously. I mean, shopping, there's limitations and whatever. But doing stand up, when I'm on TV, I like to dress a bit. So I wear a jacket, wear a suit. But when I'm not on TV, then it's just whatever I'm wearing. But yeah, I have, I guess, what I'd call a style. I love Nike stuff. I like nice shirts.
You ever wear a hat?
No. Well, early in my career, I wore a hat all the time. I had a pork pie hat, little pork pie, and I lost it somewhere I moved. I wish I still had it. And I used to say big laughs under a little hat because it was just a little, what they call a stingy brim.
Just
if
that
you're
little.
Familiar with like a little 1-inch pork pie. But I'm not a hat guy. Hats. Certain people can wear hats and others can't. And after numerous tries, I realized I am not a hat person.
I got myself so amped up one day and was like, you know what? I'm a hat guy. And I walked down the street to this hat shop, and this lady's trying on these hats, and I'm just like, I don't know. And then she's like, this one looks great. I bought this Stetson hat. I wore it back to my showroom, and my friends were there, and they're like, what are you, fucking Indiana Jones? And they weren't. It wasn't like, nah, you look all right, man. It was like, no, seriously.
No,
you Crocodile Dundee, dude, get out of here. And I was like, you know what? Maybe the hat's not for me. And then the only time I would wear it was when we played poker at my house and stuff. it'd be like my fuck you hat I put on, and
yeah, I know. I have one friend. He can put on a hat, any hat, and it just works on him. It's just a hat guy. Some people are. Some
bow
people
ties
aren't.
are like that too.
Yes.
Not everyone. I just
And a lot of people think they can pull off the bow tie, and it's like you can't.
You can't. That's not you.
And it's a commitment. You got to commit to the bow tie, so that it will grow. People will become comfortable with it. Yeah, you got to commit.
Confident about that thing. You got to rock it. Now,
but I like clothes though.
Oh, and that's what I saw on stage. You had, and even when I met you, we met at the Dapper Gentleman's Ride. I mean, you were dressed up.
Distinguished Gentleman's Ride. You got to dress for the distinguished.
But you looked great too. It wasn't like you showed up in some sloppy looking clothes. You looked. It was all put together.
Thank you.
Now, we're coming towards the end here, but two things I wanted to find out. The first thing I want to start with is how did you get into this? From where you were, how did you?
Right. Okay. So 10 years I'm working as an airplane mechanic. Then I got a job and I started training mechanics. And from the very first time I taught the class, I was super comfortable in front of the room. Public speaking is one of the biggest fears people have. It never affected me. It was most natural. I didn't know it, but it was a natural talent I had. So I would go up there and I'd teach and I'd talk to them and I'd make fun of them and I'd tell them stories about when I worked on planes, this is funny, that's funny. So it was something that I liked doing. And then the other side of my life, I'm in recovery, right? I've been in recovery 30 years. Which is a big mistake, right? Got sober, went to rehab way before it was a thing. Far too soon. Should have went to rehab after Last Comic Standing. Debating starting an opioid habit now might be a career move. My agents would love nothing more than me and heroin just to do a short run before the release of the next special.
I mean, that's it. It's
sacrifice, right?
You can do it to the extreme. Go to the extreme. Get that press.
Just not that committed. But no.
But that life sounds so good.
But what happened where I went to rehab was a place called Studio 12. And the stars went to Betty Ford. The crew went to Studio 12. I was surrounded by the grips, the electricians, the camera operators, the wardrobe designers, the blah, blah, blah. And they made it real. They let me understand that the entertainment business is a business. It's a job. It's because if you're not in the entertainment business, right, it looks like this amazing thing. Then you're like, how do you do that? But being around them, they made it real. And they were like, yeah, you could do it. And they were like, there's really no blueprint to this. It's not like when I was an airplane mechanic, I went to school, I got my licenses, I got a job. This business isn't like that. You just start doing it and you find something and it works or it doesn't,
Right.
But so those things, they came together and I said, I'm going to start doing comedy. And I took a comedy writing class because I didn't know how comics came up with material. And after doing this writing class, I did that 5-minute graduation show. Never looked back. Absolutely hooked. At that, right after that show, there was no doubt in my mind that this is what I was going to do. And I got laid off from McDonnell Douglas, which is where I was teaching, Aerospace. And I just said, I'm never working on a plane again. And just started doing other jobs or whatever, day jobs and hustling till I could make this work.
It's awesome how one thing can just lead to another and then boom.
Yeah.
You got a mic on your hand and you're sitting there telling people what to do. So with that career of being a comedian, you get stuck in that night owl kind of stuff, I would imagine, right? A lot of times.
Yeah, to an extent.
So what?
It's an odd schedule.
Right, because it fluctuates. What do you do with the times that you're free? I know you're into motorcycles and cars.
Well, motorcycles are my escape vehicle, so I love being on a bike. I've thought of some of my best material while on a bike. There's something meditative about riding.
Present.
For me. Yeah, you're present in the moment, absolutely. During the day, it could be anything. I may be writing. I may be doing voiceover auditions. I'm really trying to crack that market.
You got that deep voice.
Yeah, I get jobs on occasion, but I'd love to do more of that. Today, listen, there's a leak. I got to go home to deal with a leak in my office. Like the water just started dripping out of this light, and there's nothing above it. I'm like, I don't know where this water's coming from. Houses are the biggest pain in the ass. They don't move, yet they break all the time. There's always some shit with owning a home, and I have to figure out now. You got to find a guy, right? You got to find the leak guy.
Yeah.
And then
the
you
roofer.
And let me tell you something. Contractors, holy shit. You talk about, that's who you need to interview and ask them, what calendar do you guys use? It's not this lunar one that we use where
I'll be there between 6 a.m. till 6 p.m. Is that cool?
Yeah. I'll be there sometime between 6 a.m. Monday and 8 o'clock Thursday night. Like I saw this thing for a contractor's exam, contractor's licensing school, and I said, you know what they should do with the exam? They should be like, we're going to have the exam 8 o'clock Saturday morning. Then you show up 8 o'clock Saturday morning. You know what? We're going to do it at 11, and we doubled the price. Like that would be the perfect contractor's exam. You'd be like, oh yeah, well that makes sense.
Get it.
That's how we do it.
That's how we do it. Now we know.
So
very true. Let's say you fill your day up with all kinds of different things.
Yeah, I've some people have assistants, right? I've never had enough for an assistant to do. I don't want somebody hanging around me all the time. We're gonna go to the cleaners for me and then write this, and then now you're just walking around behind me for 7 hours. Although I understand the need for some people to have that. My work is travel. I've become my own travel agent. That business is gone. I used to have the greatest travel agent. Sadly, she passed away. And she had a company called Stand Up Travel. She had been a manager. She knew how comics lived, how we travel, this and that. Now you got to do it all on the internet. So some days I'm just booking travel all day, trying to figure out how to get from point A to point B. And I call the airport my office. I'm in the airport every week, flying here, flying there, and that's the work. Getting on stage is the easiest part of my job.
Getting there is the hard part. Well, hey, thank you so much for coming out today.
This was very cool, man.
I appreciate you. And that's it for Reap What You Sow.
All right. Thank you.